Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of the week again. It's Gamescussion coming to you today with a topic of the biggest disappointments in gaming, what we have faced, and also the most delightful surprises of games and gameplay we have encountered during the years of what we have played video games. And I'd like you, Carlos, to go first.
All right, well, let's get straight into it, and we're gonna kick off with the disappointing ones first, just to get those out of the way, and we can then hopefully end on a happy note and not feel so discouraged about our gaming experiences.
Just to say, end on a happy ending.
Yeah, a happy ending.
Yeah.
That's what we all want.
Yeah, but go on ahead.
Yeah. So for my, I had a really hard time picking a sort of a disappointing game because most of the time it's gonna be like a sequel to a game, right? Because you have like certain expectations after a standalone title. If you enjoy the game, you find out they're making a sequel, and then you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I can't wait to play that. Hopefully it'll be as good as the first one. But sometimes things just don't go right, and you end up with sort of a less than a fulfilling experience, I would say. So I went with a game called Dead Space 2. You might have heard of it. Not a well, I guess it's not the biggest game out there, but it's quite well known.
Yeah, I actually have Dead Space 2 and 3 available for me to play through Origin, but I have not installed either one of them. So I really don't know. And I haven't played the original one, so I'm kind of in a loss of words with what do you mean, but I have to trust you in this case.
Yeah, and hopefully this doesn't discourage you from or anybody listening to this from trying these games, because I'm gonna make clear in a point my thoughts on the series in general and stuff. But yeah, so the original Dead Space came out in 2008, and it was made by Visceral Games. Well, I think it was called EA something back then, but it was the same studios I think that gave us what was it? Oh, let me check my notes here really quickly. Yeah, they made one of my favorite console games once upon a time called The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King, and that was pretty
Oh
much the
yeah,
only thing that I knew about
that
them.
was a good game. Yeah,
Yeah, one of the better like
hack
movie
and
based.
slash.
Yeah,
Yeah,
from
movie-based hack and slash. Yeah,
it's
it was
a
a good
lot
game.
of fun playing with a friend. Good
Yeah,
mod. So
it had a co-op mode. Yeah, yeah, that's true. I used to play that game a lot too.
it was really solid, and that was pretty much the only game. They made a lot of golf games and some other random games that I haven't tried. But that was like I didn't have really that any expectations going into the first. I knew it was like a horror game in space, as you might guess from the title. And like I've said before, I'm a fan of like horror genre in general, movies and games as well. And the first game, like I actually could have went to say that the original Dead Space was my surprising game, but I didn't want to pick like two games in the series. It would have been made a dull sort of an episode. So yeah, the original game I played through it. It wasn't like a groundbreaking or anything, but it had a really good setting, which I really liked. You're sort of isolated in space, alone on this derelict ship. You know, something's gone wrong. You're sent there to investigate, and what you end up finding is that the ship has been overtaken by these necromorphs, I guess they're called. I should have really like checked some background info. 'Cause it's
Yeah,
been a while since I played it, but I think they're
yeah,
called necromorphs or something.
yeah. They are necromorphs,
Yeah, these hideous mutated sort of
mutated
human-like
and
things.
aggressive human corpses is the official saying, as they say in
Yeah, well,
their
that's what I pretty much
Wikipedia page.
remember.
Yeah.
So yeah, the first game I think it was like I didn't play it when it came out. I think I played like maybe 3 4 years after it, because the second one game had a game come out by the time I had played the first one. So when I when I played through the first one, I enjoyed it. I think it was a really good game, and I was kind of excited. Like, yeah, we got there's a second one, and looking at the reviews and everything, it had really good like the first game did really well. I think it sold pretty well and also really good reviews. Second game much of the same, so I was really excited. And like I said, I really have like expectations for a new game, a new series, or anything like that. But when you get to the sequels, you sort of like you set the bar at a certain level after the first game. So going into the second one, I did have some expectations, and mostly, at the very least, just as an enjoyable experience as the first one. And straight off the bat, like the first game, not gonna spoil anything here, but it does end on like I mean, it wraps up quite nicely, and it could have been like a standalone game, but obviously, you know, video game. If you have a successful video game like that, then why just leave it at that? You know, why wouldn't you do a sequel? I guess. And there was like you know, it did lend itself to continuing the story. Like it didn't take long for me when I was playing the second game to sort of feel off-putted because like the main like point or my main enjoyment I got from the first game was being like you're isolated, alone. You feel like you're against the odds, like you're in this strange place, and you're not really like because the main character is not like some kind of a space marine or anything. You're like this engineer that's sent to investigate the ship alone. So, and your main weapon is actually sort of this multi-purpose tool for like I guess welding and cutting things. Mostly cutting, obviously, limbs in the game, but
yeah.
So yeah, and the second game can't quite remember like because it's been a while since I played, but can't remember like straight up like how it started. But straight away you're like in a less confining space, or like in this I don't know if it's a city or whatever, some kind of a facility, and there are like other people there. Like I'm not saying that it had to be quite as like you don't have to be quite as alone as you were in the first game, but it does take away from like the suspense when you're like in this more of a open sort of not like open world or anything, but like in a more open spaces, and you feel less maybe claustrophobic and stuff. You're not going through that many dark corridors anymore. You're just
Yeah, that's something in horror games that you have situations where you realize that you are completely alone. That fucking corridor is dark as hell, but I have to go there. And I know that it's going to be a rape time situation every single time you walk through that corridor. That's the thing about horror games that I look into. And if you take that element away, you put big halls filled with the other people, and then there's a section you cannot go into because there are enemies. It takes something away. It doesn't make you feel so anxious when you realize that okay, I'm not actually alone. I can come out of there anytime I want and talk to people and be happy again. But that's just how I feel.
yeah. I do remember like something of the second game. I remember there was a part where you were like going through like sort of a mall or something, which is fine itself. Like that's a very and you see those a lot of them like in horror, like especially like the zombie genre. You're going through like the city scene or something, but I just feel like it was like this because sort of the atmosphere that the first game offered wasn't there. And another thing, like the one thing that I do really enjoy about the second game is that they did like enhance the gameplay experience, like they usually do with like when you get new. I mean, obviously get more resources because there was a successful game back in this, and you maybe like have sort of a easier time starting and then like enhancing what you did in the first game. So like this all the combat stuff and killing the necromorphs, it's a lot more fun in the second game. But obviously like that's not the only fun part. I'm looking like it's like in a horror game, it's not all about like just the most brutal and grotesque way you can be eliminating your enemies. And another thing that like I pointed out just before we started, I had a excellent point of comparing this to quite a famous horror movie franchise, The Alien and Aliens. And for a long time, people have been saying like how The Alien is one of the best horror movies there is, and then you have the sequel Aliens, which is one of the best action movies. So you sort of had the same thing going on with Dead Space, where the first one is more horror and the second one is more action orientated, which is fine. But it's just like I said, like this is a disappointment since you're sort of expecting more of the same that I had with the first one. And one big point also that had a really big effect, I feel like, is obviously the story. Like I said, like it did. There was like material there to continue the series, but the way they just sort of did it was quite generic. I'm not saying that like the first one had some amazing story behind it or anything. I was quite bare bones, but the way they did the second one and they they fleshed out the main character more, Isaac Clarke, and they sort of gave him a new personality. Not that he had much of a personality actually in the first game, since you're mostly alone, just going through corridors, so you don't have you don't see that much of the side to him. But in the second game, you know, you're interacting with other people, and he sort of becomes this action hero type of guy. Like instead of this like regular engineer that got in the middle of all this shit, suddenly he's just like making humorous quotes and quips, like sort of like you'd say nowadays, like a Marvel movie sort of a guy. Like he can see like see the well, not make light of the situation, but sort of like that. And I feel that was really the wrong way to take it, because I rather enjoyed the more stoic, silent type of character that he was in the first game.
Yeah, but the point is basically when you have a game that disappoints you, it it doesn't touch you in any way. You cannot remember basically anything from the game, any story points or anything like that, because you just try to bury that memory of horrific memory of a bad game somewhere deep inside you and never visit again. That's how I feel that you've gone here. That the second game disappointed you so much that you don't even want to remember so much
Yeah,
details
that's
from anything.
exactly, yeah. You sort of like forget more like of the first game. You remember like the fun you had with, and the second game, like obviously it's gonna be because like the first game, I think it's a very good game. It's not like uh, the best game, you know, the best horror game or anything like that out there that I think, but still it was a really good game. And then the second one, it wasn't bad either. I mean, I wouldn't call it maybe very good. I maybe call it good and leave it at that. It's a fun
Yeah.
game and to play, but it just doesn't like it's not rememberable. Like the only thing like you said I can remember, it's just the feeling that I had playing it, that I felt like this is not the Dead Space that I wanted.
This is not the same game
No,
anymore.
and obviously, and one thing is just before I finish my well, I'm quite a rant, but my opinion on the second game is there is a third game in the series, which
Yeah.
came out a couple of years after the second one, and that I did, because when I replayed these a couple of years ago, the first and the second, and much of the the disappointment that I originally had sort of came back. So I was maybe like after the first game I didn't feel quite as excited playing the second game, but I did enjoy the action aspect of the game more maybe than I did the first time that I played it. But then I gave the third game a try for the first time because I hadn't played it before. Obviously, because I was sort of like bummed out by the second game, I didn't really like feel excited about the third game anymore. And the third game was like it was basically more of a continuing of the second one, and I feel like it really went out there, like it totally forgets about the first game, and it sort of feels like a whole different, well, not maybe genre, but it's certainly like the horror aspects that there were in the second game, or the little that there were completely gone by the third game. Though obviously I didn't play, I only played it maybe for an hour and a half or something before I just couldn't be bothered. And also the third game does feel like gameplay wise as well, it doesn't really feel as good as the second game. And I looking at the reception of the third game, I can see that it did get quite a lot weaker reviews across the board as well.
Yeah, but that's usually what happens when you do a sequel and a sequel to a sequel. It's you just most of the time you forget where you're coming from. What's the original idea behind it? You get blinded by reviews, and if some people critics compliment your action parts of the game but don't acknowledge, for example, in this case, the horror part, it's easy to forget and just to focus, okay, they like this. How do we make it better? Forget the original idea, what was behind it. But should we move on to my disappointment then? It's also a sequel to a sequel to us. Well, basically, it's a sequel to a sequel, which is a sequel to a trilogy. So we're talking about Gears 5. It changed developer making Gears of War 4, and the coalition which developed the Gears of War 4 also developed Gears 5. They have dropped the of War from the title completely. It's now just Gears 5. But I have a similar experience with Gears 5 you had with Dead Space, that I cannot remember anything about the story they told in the beginning. There's a long ass cutscene at the start of it. It must be like 20 minutes long, and I remember nothing from it because the gameplay after that was just so terrible to me. I did not like the controls. The original trilogy of Gears of War was quite good. Third person, rampaging, killing, and gore everywhere and stuff like that. I know you have actually seen. I don't know if you have played Gears of War trilogy.
Oh, yeah, I have. I can't remember if they was like which of the games I've played, because I feel like I played two of them. I can't remember if I started with the first one or was it like the second and third one. I didn't really like play through.
Yeah, they were all games. They were fun to play and things like that. But this Gears 5, I did not play Gears of War 4 at all. But actually, it was your brother who tried to get me to play this Gears 5 with him. It came through the Xbox app, actually. And it was available from there. And we downloaded it, and we played almost like 2 hours. But all the 2 hours was so painful with the game mechanics, and the combat was quite poor, and the movement of the characters was poor, and you cannot utilize the environment that much in that game anymore. And it was basically just go to cover, try to pick your shots, and move on. You're forced to go through the pipe, at least at the beginning. I know that they say that there is some open world things and little RPG things that come along the way when you progress with the campaign. But if you're going to start the game and you feel like you've been tortured for 2 hours right at the beginning, how many people really want to continue anymore beyond that? Unless you're a game reviewer. But Gears of War 5 also has had good scores. For example, Metacritic gave it 82 points. I wouldn't been so generous. I would have gone once again with like Edge magazine had done, 6 out of 10. I just couldn't enjoy it. I felt like it had lost the idea what Gears of War was. Just try to build a mass-produced pile of shit to people just to buy and buy. That's how it felt to me. And
yeah, which you certainly like. thinking back to the original trilogy, like I feel like that was nicely sort of like I know the fourth game as much as I do know about the fourth game. I know it's like sort of set way after like the first game, so it's sort of like a not really a spin-off. It's still a sequel, obviously, but they sort of like separated from the original trilogy, and I feel like I don't know how well the fourth game did, but like going to like the way that they sort of dropped the off war from the title. I feel like that's sort of like they knew that they really like obviously they might. I'm not so deep into don't know too much about these games, but like you feel like maybe they sort of got their plans and story across with the first three games, and then they just sort of like, oh, it was a really like it's a really successful series. We can't just leave it at that. We have to sort of milk it more.
Try to milk the cow more.
And that's how you get these sort of like 4 or 5, and by maybe like they wanted to separate it sort of like to the fans of like the original, like they sort of knew like what they were doing, so they just called it like Gears 5 to make it like they had to get obviously the 5 there and get the Gears sort of brand behind it, but they weren't really like going for a new gaming experience, but just wanted to milk the cow.
It's and also what I think was is completely distasteful of Gears 5 is that they implemented in the game from the Terminator series Sarah Connor or T-800 Terminator model as a playable character, and then they use the WWE professional wrestler Dave Bautista is also available to play as a character. So it's just I don't really appreciate trying to bring characters from something else into a game and try to make it work. It just seems lazy, and try to basically get the mass-produced shit out of it once again. Try to
extra marketing and stuff.
Fish out the Terminator fans or fish out WWE fans just to have the right to put their name in a box that it would sell better. I don't like it at all. But I think that's it. Can we move on to the positive side of this?
Absolutely. And
yes, sounds good.
Yeah.
And your game of a positive, delightful gaming experience would be
a game that also quite coincidentally came out the same year that my most disappointing, one of my most disappointing being Dead Space 2, but LA Noire. And this was a game that I had I had no like previous knowledge of the game, which is kind of like not that I follow gaming news that especially back then when they came out, I didn't really follow gaming news, but it was a game that had been in development for years, for a long time.
It never got the hype.
No,
basically. It wasn't hype like GTA or anything like that. They kind of flew under the radar, develop it in peace, and then boom.
Yeah, and it was like you have a game like that's 7 years in development, and there was like delays of the release and stuff. So you feel like during that time the hype is gonna come and it's gonna go, especially to a game that's a standalone, no previous. And even the studio was like new, and there was no like previous games, so you didn't really know what to expect. And looking back, you do like read quite a bit about Eleanor or hear about it, and you always like hear like, oh, this game sort of like came out, and nobody was like, I mean, obviously it did quite well, especially like review wise. But
it got good reviews when it originally came out.
Yeah, it was like I said, a very, very good game, and the fact that just you go into this blind like, okay, a detective game, which aren't that common of a genre anyway,
No.
And this was quite like looking at I remember looking at the trailers, and you see that they really liked. You could see like it was a really sort of like a major release. Obviously, it was published by Rockstar Games, so
Yeah.
but the developer behind it completely unknown. And I remember like cause the first time I played it was with my brother, and like throughout the time it was like sort of felt like so weird to like have such a fresh concept. Like I like to this day I really haven't. There might be if there is anything out there. Like I'd love to hear about it, but I've yet to play like a game that is quite like on the same vein as Eleanor. Like there are detective like sort of detective games and stuff, but usually these are like
Yeah.
much smaller scale, and they're not this big AAA studio releases, because obviously like with like same with thing with horror games, usually those start steering into a different direction and you get more action games and stuff like that. And Eleanor did obviously offer, you know, you get to shoot people in it and drive cars recklessly around the
Yeah,
city.
it's basically what it. If you put it in a character, basically, it's GTA, but on the right side of the law.
Yeah, well put. And actually, you could almost like play into it like if you play to the GTA series, you could like see. You could almost think it was like sort of a spin-off or like a really well developed mod or something. But
Yeah.
and obviously like the big selling point I remember like when the game came out was this facial capture technology that they used.
Yeah, and the interviews you needed to do and pick up tells of people.
Yeah.
To somebody who has played a lot of poker in his life, like me, it was quite intriguing trying to pick out. Did he do something? I think he did. Did he? He didn't. No. Did he? No. Did he? No. And it was so nice. And it really didn't even need that much action. There is an action part of the game, and there is a lot of shooting and driving, like you told. But oh, I don't. Fond memories. I like the game too. It's one of the best games I've ever played.
Yeah, it's one of those games like where it's so well like the period of it, like the setting in the 1940s, like it's so
Yeah,
fleshed out, and you feel like you can really immerse yourself in it. And like I said, the facial capture that they did, that was like completely developed for the game, and they really went to extensive like with the actors in the game. They really had to like they really like used it to their advantage. Like even today, when I like if you play like Eleanor, I still think it's like one of the best like facial animations in a video game. Like obviously the
yeah.
graphics are like a bit dated by now. It's a 9 years old game. You know, it's not like so bad that you couldn't enjoy it
Well,
or
didn't
appreciate it.
they actually make didn't they actually made an VR version of it, and I
Yes,
think they republished it to the new consoles, right?
yeah, that came a couple of years
Did
ago.
they upgrade? Did they upgrade graphics on that?
I don't.
That's my question.
I think they could have made
An
like maybe
enhanced
yeah,
version,
maybe
yeah,
like enhanced. Like
enhanced
we talked
version.
about remakes and
Finer texture
enhancements.
details, upgraded weather effects, and new camera angles. Yes. That, all in all, can we move to my biggest delight in actually in many years? Back in 2010, uh, they released an interactive drama and kind of an action adventure game of Heavy Rain. It was exclusive to PlayStation quite a long time. It came to PC actually 2019 last year.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So it's available to PC right now. So you might want to pick it up too. But as you were talking about LA Noir, how it's made to be like a movie in a way, but still have some action and then you have to search things and stuff like that. It's basically what Heavy Rain was. It was made to feel like a movie, quite some sort of horror because there's a crime behind it, and somebody kidnaps your daughter, and you get some clues and things you have to do in order to get her back. And all what well, I had no expectations of it, but it took me 2 nights to play through the game. I got so hooked that even on the first night, I think I bought it for PS3, which I used to have back in the day. But I bought it. I think it was a Friday night when I bought it, and it was 9 o'clock in the evening when I got home and started playing on it, and it was something like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when I decided now I have to go and get some sleep, and when I went to sleep, all I could think of is what the fuck is gonna happen next. Should have done something differently, but things like that. So the game just kept creeping in my mind, and the next day I woke up and I had to just play through it. But what the game does so well, it uses the analog controls of PS3 controller so well. Uh, I think PS3 controller had the 6-axis moving, and when you tilt it, and like that. I remember it had those
Yeah.
movements also available, and then basically what the game is, when something happens, the game, it's all a continuous series of quick time events. So you want to pay attention to the story, but then you have to focus also to the quick time events. And I don't want to give so much away from the story because I know you haven't played it, and
No,
I know
I
you
did
want to
start
play
it,
it
and
one
I
day.
have yet to. I really need to get around finishing it. I played it for like, it's really hard to say like where you drop off on the game because it's like you said, it's sort of it's like a drama, so you don't have like, oh, this is like that map or that part of the game. It's a really
No.
well built story, and and you said like you played it through 2 sittings. Like you almost like wish that you had, because obviously it's still a video game and they tend to be quite a bit longer than movies. But you almost
Yeah.
wish that you could just sit there and just go through the whole game on one sitting, so you could like really like get into
Yeah,
it.
and actually, that's what happened. I got to actually my friend came over to my place. It was week later or something like that, and I was home alone, and I had all day, and they said, "Can I try that game?" And you know who I'm talking about, actually. He's actually our uncle, but he came across and said that can I try that game, and actually uh, he stayed at my place the whole day and played through the whole game during the day, and I just got to watch from the sideline, and I didn't want to influence any of his decisions, so he made his own story because there are multiple ways you can go with the story, with your decisions and stuff like that. And I got to see a different part of the game, and basically don't have to stress about the quick time events anymore. I can watch and enjoy the basically as a long movie. But I really like that game, and well, it isn't the typical game I tend to play so much, but it's something that is a fun memory of game. And do you have anything to add, or
No, not much. Just really disappointed with myself that I still haven't play through the games. Is I did, like I said, like I've started it and I did enjoy it as far as I get, but then something came up and you just sort of like I said, you wanted to like beat in one sitting, and I never really like. Because there was like something going on, and I had to do stuff, and yeah, I'm gonna continue it in a bit and stuff, and now it's like then after like a while, you sort of like felt disconnected to the thing, and I usually just want to go start it over, and I never really got around to giving it another try.
But if we should conclude our episode here, I would like to say that there are many, many, many good video games out there, and what we do here is we talk of our own experiences. We don't want to discourage anybody from picking up some game, even though we might have said that it's bad. But all in all, try it and make your own opinion of it if you want to try. That's what I do. I don't really listen to critics about games. Just go on. If I want a game, I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna try it. If I don't like it, I don't like it. If I like it, I like it. That's the way it goes.
And once again, I'm just like I said before, regarding my disappointment of Dead Space 2, I still think it's a fine game. And if you like feel discouraged about my experiences, you should know like going into these games, you probably won't have the same expectations as we did. So you might have like just on based alone on that, you probably will have a different kind of a experience.
Yeah. But I think that's all.
Yeah.
I want to thank everybody for joining with us once again. Hope you liked it. We are still taking suggestions on what to do next. But I think that's it. It's bye-bye, and until next time.